Last week, I recorded a video, one I thought I'd post that day, but after what happened on the 10th of September to Charlie Kirk, it became irrelevant, really. The news of Charlie Kirk's assassination is still echoing around the world, and to be honest, I struggled with what to say, because everything that can be said about Charlie himself has already been said. His legacy will endure. He did stand boldly for the truth, and like others before him, Martin Luther King, JFK, his life was cut short, but his impact will ripple for generations. What I want to talk about is what comes next after the tragedy, what comes after the headlines, what this moment reveals not about Charlie Kirk, but about us. On the evening of September 10th, my first reaction was blunt. America is going to tear itself apart. And honestly, it could have. Many expected it to, but something remarkable happened instead. Truly patriotic Americans showed Herculean restraint. They didn't riot, they didn't burn cities, they didn't attack anyone. They remembered who they were and what separates them from those who riot every time outrage is manufactured online. Compare that with what happened after George Floyd. American cities turned into war-torn third world countries, burned, looted, desecrated over the death of a longtime criminal whose record was known, but whose narrative was untouchable. Liberal Prime Minister Justin Trudeau knelt for 8 minutes and 46 seconds during a rally on Parliament Hill in Ottawa, June 5th, 2020, to honor the death of George Floyd, breaking his own COVID restrictions. But this time, when another one of the right's most prominent voices was assassinated, the right responded with discipline, not destruction. They knew the difference between grief and vengeance, between justice and chaos. That said, understand this clearly. Restraint is not weakness, it's discipline, it's patience, but it's not endless. The right in America owns the majority of the firearms, and unlike the left, they know how to use them. They understand force, they train for it, and they don't take that responsibility lightly. The first line of defense has always been restraint, and thankfully it held. When the world woke up on September 11th, there were no fire bombings, no buildings destroyed, no retaliation, no riots, just sorrow and clarity. But don't mistake silence for surrender, because there's a limit. There's a line, and the left has inched closer to crossing it than ever before. A close friend reminded me, we're not the United States. Get some popcorn and watch what they do. And he's right. But that doesn't mean we're immune. We may not have the Second Amendment or the same widespread culture of firearms, but we are facing the same spiritual crisis, the same war on reason, the same temptation to turn disagreement into dehumanization. I witnessed it firsthand just last Saturday in Toronto. A large crowd of unhinged Antifa supporters surrounded us, screaming in our faces, calling us fascists. Why? Because we dared to say what millions of Canadians are already thinking, that mass immigration is crushing our infrastructure and eroding our national identity. We weren't violent, we weren't hateful, we were simply asking for a rational conversation about the policies that affect our future. And for that, we were branded the enemy. Not debated, not challenged, just dehumanized. Well, these street people who have nothing to offer society and are net takers scream profanities about Charlie Kirk, a man who would have gladly given them his precious time just to talk, just to ask what was hurting them so deeply that it turned into rage. That was his strength. He never met hate with hate. He met it with questions and quiet, immovable truth. This is what happens when ideological purity replaces civil discourse, when slogans replace truth, when people would rather scream than think. And it has been normalized by the far left. The Democratic Party is in crisis. Many classically liberal Americans are watching in horror as their own movement is hijacked by radicals. The mask is slipping and people are waking up. In the hours after Charlie's death, the way some of the left responded, celebrating, mocking, denying humanity, was revealing. And it was also just horrifying. Jordan Peterson has asked for years, when will the left go too far? We may have just seen the answer. And many people, especially honest liberals, are reflecting on it for the first time. This is also a moment to reflect on something deeper: speech. We love to talk about free speech and hate speech as if they're purely legal terms, but they're not. They're moral terms, they're spiritual terms. And while you can define them in law, their true meaning comes down to you, to each of us. Because every thinking person must eventually answer, where is the line? When does speech become an act of violence? When does disagreement become dehumanization? We all know the difference if we're being honest with ourselves. If we look inward, and if we still believe in conscience. What we've also seen quietly and strategically is another form of action, one that doesn't involve violence or destruction. People on the right are making sure employers know who they've hired. They're pulling the masks off the online mob. They're holding individuals accountable, not by censorship, but by exposure. And many companies are taking steps to distance themselves from these employees who celebrated a man's assassination in front of his family, as they should. This is how the right fights back, without firebombs, with facts, reputations, and consequences. And it's working. Now we arrive at this fork in the road, a moment of reckoning, not just in America, but in every Western democracy. Do we let this escalate? Do we continue to pretend both sides are equal when one has made violence a tactic? Do we sit quietly because we're afraid to speak truth? Or do we lead? Because if we don't draw a line around what's acceptable, someone will. And it won't be in your favor. I'm not here to incite. I'm not here to mourn one man louder than the legacy he left behind. I'm here to challenge you, to think, to reflect, to ask yourself where your line is. It's not politically, morally, just ask yourself. Because this moment is not about Charlie, it's about us. It's about the society we want, the communities we're willing to defend, in the future we're willing to shape for our children. Free societies are not held together by agreement. They're held together by shared restraint. So ask yourself, what happens when one side abandons restraint entirely? And what happens when the other side finally decides it's gone far enough? So the question isn't just, when has the left gone too far? It's this, what will you do when it has? Because silence is not neutrality, and hoping things get better is not a plan. Now is the time to speak clearly, to stand with courage, to lead with conviction, The future will not be shaped by those who yelled the loudest. It will be shaped by those who stood their ground while there was still time to stand. Charlie Kirk always spoke the truth, and he did it with respect, dignity, and conviction, especially when he saw that truth was being twisted into a lie. If you don't believe in woke ideology and DEI quotas and land acknowledgements that rewrite history, then say so. Because silence in the face of lies is not neutrality, it's consent. If you let others speak falsehoods in your name, you become complicit. Speak the truth, even if your voice shakes. Stand firm even when you stand alone, because nothing changes until someone refuses to lie. In communism, everybody lies to everyone all the time, especially to themselves. That's how it survives. If we want to live in a free society, we have to break the cycle. Tell the truth, live in truth, and never become the kind of person who lies just to be left alone. Because deep down, you know you won't.